Hi everyone, this is Kenny from Guitar Player Academy. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about my new Blues Improv Basics course. If you'll stick with me for this short lesson, I'll show you the easiest way to solo over dominant 7 chords in a typical blues progression. The basic blues progression consists of 3 dominant 7 chords. Each chord is labeled 1, 4, or 5. The 1 chord is built from the first note in the key of the progression, and in this case we're in the key of C major. So the first note is C. So the 1 chord now is going to be C7, right? Let's just back up and make sure that makes sense to you. So we said that you have each chord is built from a note in the from the scale. So the first chord, or the 1 chord, is built from the first note in the key of C major. That note would be C, and so the 1 chord is C7. The 7 tells us that the chord is dominant and not a major. All that means is that in the key of C, the 7th note is B, and in a C7 chord, you have the note B flat. So all we did was take the 7th note and lower it down. That's called a flatted 7th, and it created what we call the dominant 7 note. So B flat is the dominant 7 note in the key of C. All right, and each of these chords are named from their own key. So let's continue with that. The 4 chord is built from the 4th note in the key of the progression. All right, so we were in the key of C, so the 4th note in C is F. That makes the 4 chord an F7, just like we did with the C7. Same thing applied to the F7. The 5 chord is built from the 5th note in the key of the progression. The 5th note in the key of C is G. So as you might have guessed already, the 5 chord is G7. Alright, there's 4 basic scales used to solo over those chords now. Let's take a look at each one at a time. The first one is the pentatonic scale. And here we're talking about the pentatonic major scale, which consists of the root, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 6th notes from the major scale, or from the major diatonic scale, which is just the 7-note scale, right? The major scale itself. The second scale we have in blues is Mixolydian. This is basically a major scale with a lowered 7th. The third scale is Dorian. Now this one has a lowered 7th and a lowered 3rd. And by the way, the Dorian scale here is exactly the same as the pentatonic minor. And we're going to be going over that a little bit more as we go through the lesson, but just keep that in mind, that Dorian is pentatonic minor. We call it Dorian because it has a flatted 3rd and a flatted 7th, just like the major, the 7-note version of Dorian does. All right. The last scale is the blues scale, and this is basically the same thing as the Dorian scale with a chromatic connecting note in between, and that connecting note is called the flat 5. A lot of people refer to that as the blue note. So we're going to be looking at all those throughout the course, but right now I just want you to know that there's 4 basic scales used to solo over dominant 7 chords in a blues setting. And the method I show you in this course enables you to play the sounds of all 4 scales using just 2 pentatonic shapes. This greatly reduces the amount of information you have to think about while you're soloing. So how does it work? First, you play the 2 pentatonic shapes in one position on the neck. One shape is C major pentatonic, and the other shape is C minor pentatonic. The minor pentatonic is the same thing as Dorian, like I said earlier. It's considered Dorian, again, because it contains the flatted 3rd and the flatted 7th notes, just like the 7-note Dorian mode does. Alright, the major and minor pentatonic scales in this one position contain all of the notes needed to create the sounds of the other 2 scales. This means you can play the licks you already know and still get these new sounds from the new scales into your improvised solos. Alright, here's a sneak peek at lesson number 1 so you can see exactly what's going on with this concept. Alright, let's have a look right now. Now in this section what we're going to do is we're going to learn the shapes of the pentatonic scale. There's 5 shapes altogether, and they're named according to the major scale. So there's a root, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Those are the names of the patterns. Now in a lot of books and other courses you may see that people teach 5 names for the major pentatonic shapes and 5 names for the minor. What I do instead is I just name the pentatonic shapes according to the major scale, and then I give those 2 functions, a major function and a minor function. Because in reality, all you've got to do is play those in 2 different positions on the neck, and you're going to get a major and a minor tonality out of it. So what we're going to do here is look in the key of C. Together, what we're going to wind up with is having C major and C minor in one position on the neck. So it'll be like this. We'll have right around this area right here, we'll have a major sound and a minor sound happening. like that. And we're going to be looking at that in more details in just a minute. So the first thing that we have here is called the fifth shape. We call it the fifth shape because it's the C major pentatonic scale starting on G. So let me play that for you. You've got G, A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, and A again. You can play that with any fingering you want. I switch fingerings up on this sometimes. All right, there we go. So that's the fifth shape. And there's 5 of these all together. There's one that starts on the root note of the scale, which is C. There's one that starts on D, which we call the second shape, because that's the second note. Another one starts on E, which is the third shape. And then we have the fifth shape starting on G, and the sixth shape starting on A. Now there's no 4 and there's no 7, and that's because we took the major scale, and you take the 4 and 7 out, what you're left with is a pentatonic. So by, nature of the scale itself, there is no 4, there is no 7, all right? So don't let that confuse you at all. I know a lot of books, when they name the pentatonics, they just name them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, those numbers don't mean anything except the order that the shapes occur in. My names actually mean something. So when we say fifth shape, if you're in the key of C, then you know that's going to tell you where it's located. It's going to tell you that's starting on G. Now, I'm going to show you a shortcut to do that. You're not going to have to think about those root notes or those notes in the scale to be able to figure out where to play this. That would take quite a bit of thinking if you had to do that for all 12 keys. I'm going to show you a very simple shortcut in just a little bit, and in fact, in our next lesson, we're going to look at that. But right now, let's concentrate on understanding how to play the pentatonic in 2 different positions so that we can take one shape and give it a major sound and a minor sound. And then at the end of this, what we're going to wind up with is 2 shapes in one location on the neck. A major location or a major shape, and then a shape that's giving us the minor sound of that location. But the point of playing in one location like this is we're learning what's called positional playing. Playing in a position is really a great way to learn because you're going to be able to play through all 3 chords of the blues harmony right in one position. And we're going to do this in 5 different positions on the neck throughout the course. So at the end of that, you're going to be able to go up and down the neck anywhere you want. But it's really, the way to learn that properly is to learn it in one position at a time. This is what I mean by position. We're talking about learning in one area like this right here, this 4-fret area. That's a position. So this is that fifth shape right there, played in that position of the neck. So that's what we mean. We're going to play the fifth shape there, and then we're going to jump down and we're going to play another shape in that location, and we're just going to stay in that one spot and play through all 3 blues chords. All right, but before we get into that, let's just take a look at this one shape and how it's major and then where we move it to create a minor sound.